Hello everyone, I hope you're doing really well. It's the 12th of August 2025. I'm Gary Waterman, a former UK police constable, and this is an update in relation to the decades-long international government fraud where our governments and their organisations have been involved in the forgery of the Companies House registration system and the incorporation documents, which not only knowingly and deliberately facilitates international conflicts, terrorism and crimes against children, the most innocent of all, but it appears as though the heads of those organisations are actively involved in those crimes. All terrorist incidents appear to be linked to the same companies, okay, and it appears as though they've been deceiving humanity for a very long time to create a risk of conflict and divide amongst the innocents. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot at the moment, the concerning information of, for example, supposedly Muslim groups planning on attacking children within schools, which is coinciding with the likes of Charlie Veitch and Tommy Robinson appearing to escalate a trigger point of civil unrest regarding the faith groups. What we need to understand is we have generally a very small number of people in full control of the world's criminal system. And this goes back to well before World War I, where there was a German company that appeared to establish control of information in relation to educational establishments, media and publishing. Okay, and this is connected to Robert Maxwell, this research, which suggests, therefore, it's connected to the concern for the children. So they will be using this control of information via propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, deception to steer the narrative of their agenda in where they want it to head. And the exposure now is so blatantly obvious of their criminal system they've had in place that they will be desperate to create a distraction and to create a risk of divide and conflict between the innocents. So it's incredibly important that we all unite. Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, whatever, whether people have a faith or not, no matter what your ethnicity, we need to unite over the real problem, which is the criminal system that our governments and their organisations have in place. And unfortunately, it involves the intelligence agencies, the heads of the police, the heads of the NHS and all government organisations. Internationally, this is an international criminal system, everybody. So we need to unite over this evidence as soon as we can, because as soon as we know what the problem is, which we now do, we now know what needs to happen to resolve it. Now, we have to have a transparent financial system at source, okay, whether it be local, national or international public spending financial systems, because then the leadership is fully exposed if they use that money for any corruption. That's never been in place, and the reason why is because of this ability to launder money through into the criminal system, through this criminal system. Now, there's religious establishments connected to the international government fraud, which does support the overwhelming evidence that I have that suggests they are leading to falsified biblical prophecies, including potentially even falsified tribulation period on the earth of earthquakes and tsunamis. And I believe this is where the collider technology comes in all of this, potentially even concluding with the creation of a black hole on Earth. And everything I say is with evidence, so we're going to look at all of the evidence as to why I'm saying this. And these people appear to believe that they have the right to bring about these falsified prophecies upon the Earth. Well, the way they've done it is through a criminal fraudulent system that exploits, victimizes and causes suffering. And therefore it is against moral conscience. And I believe moral conscience was given to us by our Creator to protect us all. And therefore they've gone completely against the Creator. So it is not against it is not the Creator that is behind this. It is a group of very sinister people that are linked to a cult belief system, it appears. Now, we have to consider that those that are running this system of fraud are also being deceived. Because remember what I said about the creation of the information control back before World War I, and including publishing, we have to consider that certain elements of scripture have been written by these cults. And the current generation, who were not alive at the time when that was done, may be being led to believe that they have to bring about these prophecies that may have been written by sinister cults. So they may also be being deceived. Now, I absolutely 100% believe in a creator, because there's certain things I can't explain that have happened to me that have led to this evidence being acquired that suggest it must be by the influence of the creator. And what I am trying to do is bring back moral conscience on the earth as the foundation, because that will bring truth, transparency, and equality and fairness for everyone around the world. So I absolutely believe that's the case. Now, I do believe there's some potentially very good evidence that we're going to look at in relation to the CERN technology, where maybe the colliders brought in something good onto the earth. Okay, and we're going to look at the evidence of why I'm saying this as we move forward with this. So let's get into it. We're going to look at the evidence of the currency producer De La Rue first, and then the military, and then the intelligence agencies tying into all of this. A huge document, and a lot of the first sections are about how I became involved in acquiring this evidence and the lead up to the investigation. So I'm going to get to some of the main points of the evidence that's recently been acquired, and what will get most attention, because unfortunately most people are worried about finances more than anything else. So we're going to be talking about De La Rue, which is the main currency producer for the world initially. And it says De La Rue is mentioned throughout this document, and it was founded in 1821 by Thomas De La Rue, who had lived in Guernsey, a UK island and tax haven, before moving to London, where the company later became involved in international currency production and based itself in Hampshire. This is the same county where many of the criminal weapons companies are based, with these being important to them in defrauding the masses through fraudulent defence contracts and the collaborative deception with other world leaders regarding conflicts. And yes, this does include Vladimir Putin in collaboration with Ukraine. Hampshire is also where Deborah Fleming had been CEO for the NHS, and who initiated my removal from Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited for refusing to file forged bank documents. And you can go and research all of this to see everything I'm saying is true. But of course, this is all just to support the Companies House evidence, which is the main evidence, because that is the government's own registration system. And there is a trail of irrefutable evidence proving everything that I'm saying within that. So I put a link here to De La Rue, and of course this document will be being circulated. In 1947, De La Rue were listed on the London Stock Exchange, which is the same year as many other significant events in the fraud, including the creation of the Doomsday Clock, everybody. And the Doomsday Clock represented a man-made upcoming apocalyptic event. There was many other things happening in 1947 that I've detailed throughout the document, including the United Nations signing a petition leading to the Israel-Arab War in 1948. It's also when the Association of Chief Police Officers was created, which is so key to all of this, and many, many other things. In 1965, De La Rue started printing banknotes with an Italian based in Switzerland, and printing banknotes also for Central Bank of Iran from the 1960s. This is significant information due to the important connections to Switzerland, with it being where CERN is based, okay, and the Large Hadron Collider, which is so important in all of this, where all of the evidence is converging. The World Economic Forum are also based there. There's a United Nations building there. The Bank of International Settlements is also based in Basel in Switzerland, and others are also based there. But this is also important with how things are relating to Iran and staged infiltrated escalation regarding immigration and the Muslim faith groups. We need to understand this is a cult group that have infiltrated the Muslim faith and every other faith group. This is not about the faiths and ethnicities. We all need to unite. We are all brothers and sisters of the human race and need to focus on the criminal system in this, okay? Reading on, it says, this period of the currency production also appears to coincide with the evidence suggesting that the real royal family were potentially infiltrated and even murdered in the early 1960s. And that, again, is featured elsewhere in the document. 1965 is also an important year due to it being when Jordans and Sons Limited, the main company in the fraud, now trading as Vistra, was incorporated on Companies House, and the year before the foundation of the Church of Satan. But the Church of Satan appears to have been infiltrated, everybody, okay? And there's a lot more evidence about that to make it appear as though what they're leading up to is Satan through these falsified biblical prophecies. But it appears to be by another group that's infiltrated the Church of Satan. In 1968, a bid was made to acquire De La Rue by the Rank organisation, which connects immediately to the research of a vault underneath the World Trade Center building at the time of its collapse in relation to Nova Scotia Bank and potentially missing gold, as mentioned later in the document. 1968 is also the year before Charles became the Prince of Wales, and Wales is where Companies House is based, and they are the ones that create the criminal fraudulent entity companies now running the world. Reading on, it says the research shows that De La Rue changed its main company name in 1991, a key time in the fraud and the year before Companies House register started to become electronic. This is the year that the Gulf War ended. It's also the year that my favourite movie, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, that links to key areas of the fraud, that's no coincidence, was released. And it's also now tying in with the Collider technology and David Icke being positioned to tell the world that earthquakes and tidal waves will be coming on the earth. And we're going to be talking about that later, and David Icke's connection to the intelligence agencies. In 1995, De La Rue acquired Portals Limited, a key company in currency production since 1724. 1995 is the same year that the intelligence agency and Russian government-linked company Hackluit International Advisory Board was incorporated. This is mentioned throughout this document, and it's also dissolved since I've exposed it, and that company is actually named on page 40 of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales incorporation document. At least one of the directors of the Hackluit International Advisory Board linked quickly to De La Rue, and De La Rue Quest, another company, connects immediately to Mohammed Al Fayed, who was obviously connected to Princess Diana, and is a criminal company, having been incorporated with the same companies as Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, as mentioned later. In 2014, De La Rue appointed BAE Systems, Martin Sutherland CEO, with BAE being part of the fraud and the largest UK. So I'm reading that again. In 2014, De La Rue appointed BAE Systems Martin Sutherland as CEO, with BAE Systems being a huge part of the fraud and the largest UK defence contractor, which refers to what I was talking about earlier, and meaning billions can be defrauded from the masses through the collusive and deceptive international conflicts and criminal government defence contracts. And there's an article which you can go and research confirming that he was appointed with De La Rue. In July 2019, the Serious Fraud Office, with Lisa Osofsky as its lead, supposedly investigated De La Rue for suspected corruption in South Sudan, but closed the case with no further action. The Serious Fraud Office are implicated in the fraud, as is Lisa Osofsky, who was moved from her position after my initial reports in 2022. This same month, July 2019, was the same month that Jeffrey Epstein was supposedly arrested, and that there was a protest in Wuhan in China regarding a planned incinerator plant there. I suspect those incinerator plants were used and potentially being planned to continue to be used to remove the bodies or get rid of the bodies in relation to their criminal system and agenda. Cell towers were erected in Wuhan the following month, and the supposed COVID outbreak was in December. I suspect this investigation into De La Rue was to alter, conceal or destroy evidence in relation to the larger criminal network and involving the Serious Fraud Office. And I think this was all triggered by Gordon Bowden, who had identified an element of the Companies House fraud and the non-verification in around 2017-2018, and that then showed the connection to 788 to 790 Finchley Road and the Companies House fraud. In February 2024, De La Rue was contracted to design the new banknotes showing King Charles's new portrait, which was unveiled on the day I released the evidence of the threat of directed energy linking to the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And that portrait was unveiled on the 14th of May 2024. In July 2002, not long after the World Trade Center disaster, De La Rue purchased Sequoia voting systems, meaning they can falsify democratic votes as part of the agenda. And as they produced the currency and also the tax demands through the taxation system, this supports that the ultimate agenda is not about money or materialism, but to control humanity to be able to reach their conclusive agenda, and that appears to be in relation to the colliders. Significant evidence surrounding Donald Trump and Elon Musk suggests that Trump was fraudulently positioned as the President of the United States, using this as supported by evidence shown elsewhere in the document. This is very important. In July 2025, so very recently, as the exposure continued, De La Rue was removed from the London Stock Exchange, for what appears to be the first time since 1947, after it was purchased by Atlas Holdings Limited, according to the research. Atlas is also the name of the experiment at CERN that supposedly discovered the Higgs boson, or God particle, in 2012 using the Large Hadron Collider. There appears to be no active company called Atlas Holdings Limited, so if true, suggests the world's main currency producer no longer exists as an entity within their own legal system. It is as they are becoming exposed. Atlas, and that information was thanks to somebody else that told me that Atlas Holdings Limited had acquired De La Rue, and I've verified that through the evidence. Atlas Holdings Limited was incorporated as Atlas Mobile Phones Limited in 1987, 2 years before CERN created the World Wide Web, and its name was last changed in 1999, 2 years before the World Trade Center disaster. It dissolved in February 2022, which means it no longer exists. And this is as I'm making early inquiries within Exborn Manor, and the same month as Putin's special military operation in Ukraine. It has a registered address in Edinburgh and is a criminal company with Stephen Mabbott and Jordan's and Sons Limited and Oswald's of Edinburgh Limited on its incorporation document. This connects to Chettelberg's, Douglas Smith, who was the special advisor for the last few prime ministers, and therefore the Goldsmith family, who he worked for, where information suggests James Goldsmith was the real father of Princess Diana. Okay, and I go into a lot more detail about that elsewhere in the document. But it also connects to Douglas Smith, who worked for James Goldsmith, and Jeffrey Epstein, and Max Clifford, and Michelle Mone, and the royal family. All connects to that, as shown elsewhere in the document. Stephen Mabbott, who's on the incorporation document, features throughout the fraud, and is shown on the incorporation document for Comares Limited, that, according to research, involved Gerald McCann, the father of Madeleine McCann's involvement in the study of radiation from cell towers, leading up to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, as shown elsewhere in the document. We're going to have a quick look at Atlas Holdings, just so that you can verify this. This is the company sales register, and you can see here, as I've said, address in Edinburgh, dissolved in 2022. As I'm starting to expose the fraud on the right hand side there, it was incorporated in 1987. You can see the different name changes. Mobile phones, okay, linking into the threat from directed energy. And if we look on the filing history, if we go in. My eyes are definitely getting worse. And if we go to the incorporation, it might be the other one, but I think it's going to be this one if it loads up. Here is the incorporation document. You can see Stephen Mabbott, Edinburgh address, Jordan's and Sons, which means it's a criminal company, okay, because the illegality continues through. And somewhere in here, there we go, we've got Oswald's of Edinburgh Limited. Back to the document. document. Atlas Holdings BV, which I suspect relates to British Virgin Islands, was incorporated on the 1st of September 2022, 7 days before the supposed death of the Queen. And as I'm continuing to expose the fraud, it is a criminal company with Vistra Limited on page 13 of its incorporation document. Vistra Limited was originally incorporated as Jordans and Sons Limited and is the same company used to incorporate Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. And the filing history shows that on the 17th of July 2025, Atlas Holdings BV changed its registered address, coinciding with the purchase of De La Rue. And let's have a quick look at that now, just to confirm that information. Oh, okay. Interesting and very important. They removed the ability to use a link for this company. So that shows how significant it is. But I've gone into it manually. Here you can see Atlas Holdings BV. It was incorporated on the right. You can see first established 1st of September 2022. If we look at the filing history, I'll do the incorporation document. You can see that Vistra Limited is on it. And that means this is a criminal company, everybody, because the illegality continues through the documents. And if you go and search Vistra Limited separately, you'll see that it's on its overview. It mentions Jordans and Sons Limited, Jordans Limited, but not Ganvalon Motors. And then when you go and look on the incorporation document, you have Ganvalon Motors, and that's never been registered, which means it's a criminal company, and the illegality continues through wherever that company is used. So wherever Vistra Limited is shown, that is also a criminal company. And here you go, you can see it, Vistra Limited, and notice the temple address. Bearing in mind, we're talking about falsified biblical prophecies, and this all tying in with religious establishments. I've tried putting a new link for the company back into the document. It's not even coming up as a link, no matter what I do, how I normally do it. So it shows how important this evidence is. Reading on, it says, according to the research, as the exposure continued, Vistra Limited became involved with EQT AB in 2023, where £210 billion appears to have been funneled through another company involving EQT AB. And I've just put some links there, but you can go and research that. EQT Partners Limited comes up when you search for EQT AB. This was incorporated in May 2008 as Derham Wood Limited before changing its name in July 2008 to EQT Partners Limited for the first time. Its name was changed again to EQT Credit Partners Limited and again changed on 28th of November 2019. And this is a month before the supposed COVID outbreak. So this is all tying in, okay, with everything being exposed. I suspect that they were funneling trillions through this company as part of the plan regarding the directed energy threat. Simon Griffiths of the company EQT Partners Limited was appointed to Lansdowne House. Actually, we'll go in through and I'll show you that as we're looking at it. So here's EQT Partners Limited. You can see incorporated May 2008. You can see the different name changes and 2 name changes in 2019, okay? The month before the supposed outbreak in Wuhan. Now, this is so important because I'm going to show you this now connects to Ghislaine Maxwell very, very quickly. So if we go into the people record and we look at Simon David Griffiths, we can see a company called Lansdowne House Residents Association Limited. I suspect this could be a reference to Lansdowne House, which is near Exmoor Manor, and where directors are connected to that property, where there's an estate agent called House and Son, and one of those directors is being Diane Bisson, who had another name of Diane Bisson Simmons. And if we go in through that company, we're now in Lansdowne House Residents Association, incorporated in 1992, a key year. Remember, this is when the company's house register became electronic. And notice the address here, Queensway House, 11 Queensway, New Milton, England. This makes very important connections throughout the fraud. In particular, there's connections to Julian Assange. And Julian Assange is linked to a doomsday cult, according to the research and evidence, and connects to the 3 families surrounding me. If we go in through the people record of this company, it should be an Anne Smith. And Anne Smith connects to 78 companies, but there's one in particular that's very important, called 45 to 47 Elgin Road. There it is. If we go in through this company was incorporated in 2004. And if we look at the filing history first of all, we'll show you that it's a criminal company, first of all, with the same companies that started Expool Manor Freehold Limited. There we go. Swifting Corporations Limited and Jordan's Limited. Now on the incorporation document, you should see I think she's on here as well. Possibly not, actually. It might be just the people record. No, it's just the people record. So into the people record, we'll see Lucy Marie Clive. Lucy Marie Clive was an associate, a friend of Ghislaine Maxwell. And within there you have Terramar UK. Now you need to remember there's over 5 million registered companies. And what are we, three companies away? Maybe 4 companies away from what we're talking about. This company dissolved in December 2019, the same month as the outbreak in Wuhan. And if we look on the filing history, on the incorporation document, you'll see 2 names, I believe. There's the company, Terramar UK. Ghislaine Maxwell. And Lucy Marie Clive. So what this tells us is that our governments are very likely lying to us, that Ghislaine Maxwell is not in prison, and that these people are very much still part of this criminal organisation and the plan against humanity. I suspect everything we've seen regarding Jeffrey Epstein is a deception to hide the collider technology and the real motive in their agenda. That therefore suggests that the child abuse cases are part of the distraction and deception to hide all of that. And this, of course, explains why Donald Trump and Pamela Bondi and the judge Robin Rosenberg has now recently refused to reveal the Jeffrey Epstein full list. Terramar UK, the company we're just looking at, links almost immediately via an aerospace company to my brother-in-law's family company as well. And that then makes connections to all 3 of my families. As mentioned elsewhere in this document, Terramar UK is also connected immediately to an informal parliamentary group set up by Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley, where Deborah Fleming was the CEO for the NHS. Below here, I've just mentioned that on the incorporation document for Jordan's and Sons Limited appears to be a symbolic 6 ones. Okay, so 11, 11, 11. If you add the 6 and the 5 together, that then makes potential biblical references, and that is the most important company in the fraud. And just a little bit more on De La Rue. So what this is telling us is they've panicked as their system becomes exposed. It looks as though they've triggered the COVID incident, and but that being a deception to the cell towers to try and get away with their criminal system, and the ultimate agenda being in relation to the colliders, which they don't appear to have the ability to fulfill that agenda yet, because the evidence suggests, which we're going to talk about as we go through the evidence, suggests they're not in a position to activate what they are meant for. But going back to De La Rue, just showing you the criminality behind this, De La Rue PLC Company's House was incorporated in 1999 by Swifting Corporations Limited and Jordan's Limited, the same criminal company. Oh, it looks as though they've removed that link as well. Yep, so I've had to go in manually. You can see it's De La Rue Limited. It was incorporated in 1999. They've actually changed the name. Look, you can see where they're panicking. They've changed the name from De La Rue PLC. I didn't know this. You can see it's changed on the 7th of July 2025, the first time since 2000, as they're becoming exposed. We go into the filing history. Remember, everybody, this is all linked, according to the research, not only the sexual abuse of children, we're talking the torture and murder of children linking in to the Collider technology. So everyone needs to do the right thing in this and change this. Complete non-compliance. Step out of your fear of not paying things, okay? And we need to start arresting these people potentially, all right? But ideally, we can do this in a way by non-compliance, including, if necessary, international working strikes. Here you can see, as confirmed on the incorporation document, Swift Incorporations Limited and Jordan's Limited. Okay, so I've just put a new link in. Let's see if that one works. Yeah, okay, so it might be because the name's changed, it doesn't recognise the link that was there. Okay, that may be the same with the other one, although I don't think the name, I think I went into it after the name change. I'll double check that anyway. So reading on, it says, I apologise to them if that's not the case. Reading on, De La Rue Holdings started in 1898, which is, it also has a forged register, not matching its incorporation document, and both are linked to Hampshire and quickly to the Flemings. Export Manor Freehold Limited and the World Trade Center disaster. 1898 is the same year when other key companies in the fraud were founded, which was shown throughout the document. And if we just see if this link works, no. So De La Rue Holdings Limited, you can see incorporated 1898 on the right. At the top there, an address in Hampshire. You can see the previous name changes. An important name change you can see in 1991, bearing in mind what we've been talking about with this. Changed it again in 2000, the year before the World Trade Center disaster. And you can see it's claiming the original name from 1898 to 1991. Okay, that's what they've stated. All right, they've put between 1898 and 1991, it only had the name De La Rue Company PLC. If we go into the filing history on the incorporation document, if it loads up, it just takes a while sometimes, we can see a completely different name. Thomas De La Rue, the name of the person that actually started De La Rue. He's probably been taken out, wouldn't surprise me. And you can see the date is 1898. So that means they've forged the register. They've lied and said it didn't have this name when clearly it did. Come back for the next part and we'll be looking at the military and the intelligence agencies linking into this sinister agenda.